American Comics, Saiyan powers shock Spider-Gwen and the universe. Episode 61, Tony visits. The next day, beep. Beep. Early in the morning, the doorbell at Sun Wuming's house rang. The visitor was wearing an expensive custom-made suit, sunglasses covering almost half of his face, and a shiny golden watch on his hand. Behind him is a Ferrari limited edition sports car. There are two auras all over his body. Rich, show bag. Is this the decadent life of a high school student? It's already 9 o'clock and you still don't get up. Tony spread his hands out in disbelief, and spoke in a very unbeatable tone. One more nonsense, believe it or not, I will find a killer to hunt you down for a whole year. Okay, Tony resolutely admitted, but he knew that the young man in front of him was the leader of killers in North America. Aren't you going to invite me in to do something? This is not the way of hospitality, an uninvited guest. Sun Wuming rolled his eyes, but still stepped aside. Tony smiled, followed into the living room and sat down on his own, while Sun Wuming came to the kitchen. And after taking out 2 bottles of orange juice, his expression changed. Hell, I hate fruit and vegetable drinks the most. Is there no whiskey? If not, white wine is fine too. By the way, I only drink the wine produced by Ovina Winery. Sun Wuming ignored him, opened a bottle, and drank it down. You are instigating minors to commit crimes. Big shit. I haven't even celebrated my 18th birthday, yet you think there is alcohol in my house. The law of the United States stipulates that only adults over the age of 21 can drink and smoke. Although few people abide by it, at least shops will not sell alcohol and tobacco to minors. There are minors like you? Tony couldn't help complaining. What the Continental Hotel did is enough for you to be arrested and locked up, to destroy the earth. The investigation is very detailed. Wuming looked at him with his head propped on one hand. Then why didn't you study your tin cans at home? Why did you come to find me? Ever since meeting Tony yesterday, Sun Wuming didn't expect to be able to hide his identity, but the other party came so fast, which was indeed beyond his expectation. Tony was a little dissatisfied with the boy's name for the steel battle suit. This is not a tin can, it is a wonderful flower in the history of human industry. Oh yes, you are also a wonderful flower, a strange flower among human beings. Sun Wuming has black lines all over his head. Can this guy speak? What I mean is. Tony looked at Sun Wuming's changing face, and quickly explained, your existence is a miracle. Can you tell me how you became what you are now? Gene experiment? Nuclear radiation? Or a natural super ability? Sun Wuming closed his eyes. This guy can really talk. He can chatter better than Gwen in a battle suit. As expected of Marvel's top 3 chatterboxes, if there is another Deadpool, he feels like his ears will explode. Wuming, I'm coming, say Gwen, and Gwen will be there. Gwen, who was carrying a school bag and dressed like a girl next door, walked in, and was taken aback when she saw the 2 people in the living room. Sorry, I didn't know you had guests. Wait, Tony Stark? It was only then that Gwen recognized that Sun Wuming's guest was actually that playboy who often appeared on TV, the chairman of Stark Industries, Tony Stark. Hearing Gwen's surprise, Tony stood up with a flamboyant smile on his face and held out his hand. Miss Gwen Stacy, nice to meet you. In the model established by JARVIS, the probability that Gwen Stacy is Spider-Woman is over 37%. But after confirming that Sun Wuming is the Saiyan from earlier, this probability suddenly soared to 95%. Gwen smiled sheepishly, avoided Tony's outstretched hand, and ran to Sun Wuming's side. Tony, puff. Sun Wuming couldn't help laughing out loud. Gwen didn't have a good impression of this playboy. In other words, 80% of the people in the United States hated the arms boss. The reason why Tony has such a high popularity on the internet is not because he is handsome and rich, but compared with Sun Wuming, Tony is a sloppy middle-aged uncle. Big shit, my current strength is all from cultivation, and it has nothing to do with the scientific experiment you mentioned. If you are also interested in chi, come to me after you have finished solving your own troubles. Sun Wuming didn't hide it. He also wanted something from Tony, and the last 2 Dragon Balls haven't been dropped yet, so he was inevitably a little impatient. I don't know if Tony's brain cursed by knowledge can make Dragon Ball radar. In fact, the author has also been cursed by knowledge, otherwise mathematics would not be so bad. Trouble? What trouble can I have? Tony couldn't understand Sun Wuming's words, and wanted to ask something more, but was kicked out of the house. I was kicked out? Standing outside the door, Tony looked left and right in disbelief. He, a billionaire, the most handsome chairman in America, how could he be so unpopular? Okay, next time I come over wearing a battle suit, let's see how you blast me out. Tony was directly annoyed and laughed. This was the first time he had encountered such treatment. Still, it's pretty interesting. Episode 62. The villains gather for a big carnival. Gwen wakes up. Metamorphosis. Sir, your assistant Pepper Potts has called. As night fell, Tony, who was modifying his armor at home, received a reminder from JARVIS and came to the living room. Hello, Pepper. Tony. You are right, the company really has a big problem. Pepper's voice was urgent and shocked. Don't worry, Pepper, speak slowly. A sharp light flashed in Tony's eyes, but he still calmed Pepper's emotions in his mouth. After he announced the closure of the weapons department, the outside world still circulated about their company's weapons and equipment, and he was kicked out of the board of directors. It's not that the former Tony didn't understand, he was just too lazy to pay attention to these trivial matters. How could it be possible for members of the Stark family to be ignorant of business and just disdainful? But this time, the actions of these people undoubtedly touched his scales. It's Obadiah who planned the kidnapping. What? Now Tony is not calm anymore. That Obadiah, who has been taking care of him like his own uncle, is actually the ghost? He has always regarded Obadiah as a relative. Why did he do this? There was a sharp buzzing sound, Tony's body froze, and he immediately collapsed on the sofa. Tony, congratulations on discovering the truth, but it's too late. Obadiah walked out of the shadows, with a happy smile on his face, and a small device in his hand. As Tony's most trusted person, he definitely has access to the house. The ridiculous thing is that this trust has brought a fatal threat to Tony. I once wanted to save your life, but you are too arrogant. Can't you be a good researcher? While speaking, Obadiah took out the arc reactor from Tony's chest. I also made a prototype. I'm not afraid of your jokes. It's not as stingy as you. With one last taunt, Obadiah walked out of Tony's house with the Arc-24 reactor. He didn't make up because it wasn't necessary. Without the arc reactor, those shrapnel would creep into Tony's heart. This is the most painful way to die. On the way to Stark Industries, Obadiah called Green Goblin. The things are already in hand, and Stark is coming to an end. I need you to help me solve the official troubles, as well as that female assistant. On top of the Empire State Building, Green Goblin sneered and hung up the phone. Really let that old thing do it. The arc reactor is still miniature. Green Goblin is naturally jealous. With this epic-making black technology, his battle armor and flight device can definitely have a qualitative improvement. Norman, what about the Spider-Woman you're talking about? Why hasn't it appeared yet? Behind Norman, the lizard man asked frantically. Beside him was a strange man emitting blue electric arcs. Both were rescued from the biology lab by Green Goblin. Everyone is a supervillain, and no one accepts anyone, but Green Goblin said that he can help several people avenge Spider-Woman, and the two reluctantly stayed by his side. Don't worry, Connors, you are much less patient than before. Norman said unhurriedly, go to the Stark Industrial Park. There is an instrument I prepared for you, which can spread the lizard serum to the whole of New York in the shortest possible time. As for you, Max, Electric Man, are you hungry? Max, who was wearing a hood, nodded slowly. Yes, I'm very hungry. Faye is very hungry. Green Goblin nodded in satisfaction. Facing the skyscrapers all over the street, he opened his arms. This is your dining table. The electricity in the whole New York is delicious food. What are you waiting for? Click. A flash of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the night sky, and Max disappeared. Soon a nearby commercial building was plunged into darkness. Dr. Lizard glanced at Norman, jumped out of the building, and rushed towards the Stark Industrial Park. The tranquility of the city was about to be broken. Green Goblin stepped on the flight controller, waiting patiently for his masterpiece. He wants Obadiah's arc reactor, and he wants Spider-Woman's life. With the addition of Lizard Man and Electron, the whole city will be shrouded in his shadow. Tony! Are you all right? After receiving Pepper's call, Rhodes rushed to Tony's residence in a hurry and helped Tony install the old arc reactor at the last moment. Where's Pepper? Tony of ability resumed his action and immediately asked with concern. She took 5 men to get Obadiah. Damn it. 5 people can't do anything. Under Rhodes' astonished gaze, Tony put on the steel armor and flew out of the villa. Manhattan, Broadway. The most famous music and stage theater in the United States is in a mess. The lizard monster that disappeared for a long time reappeared in front of people's eyes, constantly causing chaos and killing. There is no difference between human memory and fish. When the lizard monster appeared, many people were stunned for a moment, unable to remember what this strange thing was. It wasn't until seeing him forcefully tore 2 people apart, stimulated by the blood, that he recalled what this monster had done in New York a few months ago. Compared to before, the lizard men today are even more brutal, and they have been subjected to months of inhuman torture in the laboratory, just filling his and the Lightning Man's hearts with hatred for humans. The skyscrapers in the financial city also turned off their lights one after another, and the powerful electric current shattered countless glasses, and large pieces fell to the ground. It's okay if you didn't hit anyone, but as long as you were hit, you basically wouldn't be able to survive. 2 people, one in the light and the other in the dark, are constantly destroying the city. Ha 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 ha. That's it. The night demon in midair did not make a move. He closed his eyes to appreciate the crying and screams coming from his ears. This night belongs to the villains. Sun Wuming's home. Gwen finished dinner with Sun Wuming, sat in front of the TV, and was watching the news. On the screen, the chaotic image of Manhattan is fully displayed. Wherever the lizard man passes, people run for their lives, one after another. But if they run a little slower and block his way forward, they will be forced by the 10th person. Max, the electric man, has absorbed enough electricity and is also making waves. Through the conductivity of metal, He releases a large amount of electric current, and all the metal objects on the street become under high pressure, and when touched, they will be turned into ashes before they even have time to scream. How so? Gwen writhed uneasily. Aren't they all imprisoned? Why did they reappear? Here, he probably did it. Sun Wuming pouted, and the green goblin on the screen flashed away. Gwen's heart was extremely heavy. What Wuming once said to him is being fulfilled. Because of her choice, Connors escaped, and it was she who prevented Wuming from killing him. It was also because of her mercy that Max survived. Now comes the retribution. These dead people all became like this, because of her choice. And behind them, how many innocent families will suffer? Gwen's face became painful. At this time, Sun Wuming took her into his arms. Don't blame yourself. It is not you who caused all these tragedies, but the government. Government? Gwen raised her head in doubt and looked at him puzzled. Look at the pustules on Connor's body, and the wounds on Electron's body. Where did they go when they were taken from the police prison? Gwen looked at the TV screen and murmured, the laboratory. That's right, since they chose to keep these people, but they couldn't control them, and finally got rid of them. Why do you want to take the responsibility on yourself? Sun Wuming persuaded him patiently. He had expected this scene. Even if the Night Demon hadn't released them, the Lizard Man and Electron would have been used by other ambitious people. This is the United States, and this is the politicians. As long as this incident is used to change Gwen's mentality, then the sacrifice of these people is worth it. Jingle bell, jingle bell. The phone rang, and Gwen took it out to see that it was George calling. Hello, Dad? Gwen, where are you? George, who was in the director's office, asked in a deep voice. I'm at Wuming's house. Gwen replied, I need your help. Gwen was very puzzled. What? George looked outside, and the police officers in the police station were running out, and the police forces in New York were mobilized to deal with the three monster-like existences. Gwen, I know, you are Spider-Woman. Gwen almost dropped her phone on the ground in fright at George's words, and Sun Wuming, who was on the side, also heard it clearly and raised her eyebrows. Did you guess it? With such a big change in his daughter, Mr. George only now guessed that it was slow. Dad, I'm sorry Gwen, Dad said a lot of bad things before, but now New York needs you. We can't let these monsters run rampant any longer. After finishing speaking, George hung up the phone, took a deep breath, took his shotgun, and stepped out of the office. Gwen, what's your choice? Sun Wuming looked at her. I'm going, this is my battle. Gwen took a deep breath, and took out a spider battlesuit from the basement as quickly as possible and changed into it. At the beginning, you asked me if I could bear the price of letting go of Dr. Connors, and my answer was yes. Facts have proved that I was too naive. The mistake has been made, and all I can do is make up for it. Since it is my choice, then the ending should be decided by me. This time I will not hold back. Gwen shot the cobweb, opened the window, hadn't put on a battle suit for so long, but she was still very skilled. Wuming, wait for me to come back. I will prepare supper for you. Wuming smiled. He saw killing intent in Lu Wen's eyes. 043, Manhattan. Dr. Lizard and Electron, destroyed all the way and went all the way. They have already crossed 3 streets. The police have already arrived and set up fortifications at the next street intersection. In the sky, there are still armed helicopters hovering, but because there are too many people around, the firepower cannot be displayed. It wasn't until they came to this area that had been evacuated that the firepower was fully fired. The 2 missiles flew towards Dr. Lizard with their long tails. Huge amounts of explosions came, and the police and the people hiding behind clenched their fists. Hit, roar, but before they were happy for 2 seconds, Dr. Lizard roared from the smoke. When the dust dissipated, people saw that half of his body had been blown away, tender green granulation sprouts were growing wildly, and he was repairing his remains, which was extremely disgusting. Electro-Optical Man shot 2 powerful electric currents, destroying a helicopter. Fire, a policeman yelled. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Conventional firepower has no effect on the current 2 big villains. The police are fighting and retreating, waiting for the support of the National Guard outside the city. Suddenly, a little girl wearing a Spider-Woman mask ran into the blockade, raised her arm and aimed at the Lizard Man. No. Navia, a woman screamed and tried to rush in, but was stopped by police. Calm down, lady. That's a monster. Dr. Lizard stopped, saw the familiar headgear, fell silent for 2 seconds, and suddenly went berserk. Spider-Woman. Do you think you are Spider-Woman? I killed Spider-Woman. The sharp claws had already appeared, and many people around had closed their eyes. They couldn't bear to look directly at what happened next, but they heard exclamations very quickly. She is coming. Gwen descended from the sky, and pierced the Lizard Man's stomach with an angry kick, with such force that his eyes protruded. After knocking several cars into the air, Dr. Lizard stopped, and it took him a long time to stand up. It hurts. Dr. Lizard was very shocked. Why Spider-Woman's strength was so much stronger. The kick just now almost kicked him in half. Before it was over, Gwen grabbed a manhole cover with the cobweb and swung it up, constantly hitting Dr. Lizard, causing him to run away with his head in his arms. Bang! 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 Everyone stared blankly at this scene. Episode 63. Iron Man, what's wrong with Shao? Small can also satisfy you. Dr. Lizard is in great pain now, and his screams can be heard all over the street. Spider-Gwen's speed and strength have completely surpassed him. Cobweb is wearing a manhole cover, just like a meteor hammer, smashing his eyes with stars. What's even more frightening is that, unlike the previous restraint, today's Spider-Woman is like a different person, and she won't give up until she is smashed to death. Dr. Lizard was really scared. Damn it. Max. Why don't you come and help me? Dr. Lizard roared angrily. Only then did he realize that he had teammates. But when he looked up into the sky, Electron had already been attracted by the helicopter, flying farther and farther, completely oblivious to his situation. Damn it. Fool. That's what a fool is. Dr. Lizard is about to go mad with anger. What kind of pig teammates are they? They are being slipped around like a dog. The surrounding crowd is cheering, and we have to watch Spider-Woman. If Gwen used to be facing such cheers and fans, she would definitely feel a sense of accomplishment in her heart. But now Gwen was very calm. What Wuming said is right. Ordinary people do not have the ability to judge for themselves what the media and the government want them to hear. Their thinking will change accordingly. Today they can cheer for their reappearance, and tomorrow they can blame them for failing to save a person. Call out. The movement of Gwen swinging the manhole cover to smash Dr. Lizard came suddenly, the waste exerted force, and the arc turned due to the amplitude. The manhole cover was also thrown out in a circle, just in time for the missile flying towards her. A violent explosion occurred. Green Goblin. Gwen said coldly. There was a sharp laugh in the air, and Green Goblin stepped on the flight controller and came over the two of them. See you again, thief. Don't try to escape this time. Gwen said firmly, grabbed the broken car door on the ground and threw it over. Green Goblin threw a bunch of bombs, blowing the door of the car, and several other bombs fell to the ground, and Gwen had to climb to the top of the tall building to avoid it. Taking advantage of this neutral position, Green Goblin lowered the height of flight, grabbed Dr. Connor's tail and flew towards the distance, leaving behind a series of shrill laughs. Ha ha ha, despicable thief, wait for New York to become a zoo. Gwen frowned, not knowing what Green Goblin wanted to do, but there must be a conspiracy. At this time, George rushed over. Gee, Spider-Woman. They're targeting Stark Industries. Electro and the two Tin Woodmen are fighting there. Hearing this, Gwen nodded to her father, swung the cobweb, and moved quickly towards the industrial zone. On the other side, Tony rushed to the industrial area wearing a steel battle suit, and rescued Pepper at a critical moment. Obadiah, why? Tony opened the mask and looked at the iron bully opposite, with pain in his eyes. Why? You asked me why? Obadiah also opened the cockpit and laughed wildly. I have served the company for 20 years, but what have I got? Tony. You're as much of a jerk as your old man. Okay, I admit that my father is indeed a jerk. Tony nodded in agreement. His expression became serious instantly, and his eyes became firm. But you shouldn't sell weapons to terrorists, let alone to small children. Chilly shot. This is business, this is the United States. Obadiah roared. The machine gun in Iron Bully's hand turned the barrel. Tony, you are so naive, just like your armor, petty, and I am the big guy. Da-da-da-da. The bullets spewed out like tongues of fire. Tony quickly brought the little Pepper to a safe position, and the group spared their energy to deal with the Iron Bully. What's wrong with Shao? Shao can't satisfy you anymore. Oh, I forgot, Uncle Obadiah, that thing of yours probably had more than enough energy 20 years ago. As expected of Tony Stark, just this mouth can immediately clear the impression of anyone who sees him. After a mouthful, Obadiah almost lost his mind, wishing to tear his mouth apart. Obadiah launched an attack frantically, and the two fought all the way from the industrial park to the road. Obviously, Tony is the one who is at a disadvantage. The Iron Overlord looks bulky, but he has enough materials, and the weapons and equipment are all the latest technology from the Stark industry. Tony fired a pulse cannon, which only knocked him into the air, but failed. Cause some damages. The size is not dominant, the power is not dominant, and the firepower is not dominant. It can be said that Tony is now being hammered to the ground. This old arc reactor not only has very little energy left in it, but even the output power is strictly limited. Now Tony seems to be using the engine of the last century to drive the latest supercar of this century, but there is not much gas left. Not only that, the Iron Tyrant's attack was unscrupulous, and the passers-by on the road were also affected. Tony had to devote a lot of energy to protecting passers-by. It was the next car thrown by Obadiah, and Tony realized that it couldn't go on like this. He distributed all the remaining power to the thrusters, and flew towards the sky. At the moment Obadiah is also red-eyed, urging the Iron Bully to follow. Emojous. As soon as the two of them rose to an altitude of 500 meters, they found a flash of lightning approaching rapidly. Shit, who is this? Why are there so many weirdos in New York? Tony let out a strange cry, and the electro-optic man had come in front of the two of them and attacked Tony. He remembered Norman said that Obadiah was a collaborator and Tony Stark was an enemy. Zila Chuang. A powerful electric current shot out from his palm and hit Tony's battle armor. For a moment, there seemed to be a huge amount of bubble in the sky. Obadiah was already smiling. Then, Tony was shocked to find that the steel battlesuit was full of energy, and the headlights on his chest lit up a bit. Obadiah, where are you from? Episode 64. Do all of you billionaires have any serious illnesses? That orange coat. The situation fell into a strange silence. Tony looked at Obadiah, then at the dumb electron, and asked a question tentatively. Well, what should I say? Thank you, Fac. What are you doing? That's the enemy. Before the electric man could speak, Obadiah broke through the defense first. Is your riding a power bank? How did Norman find you, a fool? He worked so hard to beat Tony to residual blood, thinking that a helper would make up for the knife, but he didn't expect that stepping on a horse would replenish blood. At the moment, Max's mind is also a mess. Among the 3 spider villains, his IQ is the lowest, and his body damage is also the most serious. After being tortured in the laboratory, Max's brain is no longer enough. He only remembers the most basic power absorption and killing Spider-Woman. Later, Green Goblin brainwashed him, and he could barely accept Green Goblin's orders. By the way, Tony Stark is the enemy. Max's mind finally turned around, and when he raised his hand, there was another lightning bolt. Tony ducked away this time. Hey, bro, thank you for your kindness. My energy is full. How about another shot later? As Tony said, the reactor on his chest lit up and sent Obadiah a pulse cannon. Having regained the energy support, Tony also became more confident. Instead of thinking about freezing Obadiah at high altitude, he launched a counterattack at a height of 100 meters. Max's attacks are all tonics for him, so there is no need to worry about it at all, as long as he defeats the Iron Bully. Tony thought well, but the situation quickly changed again. Green Goblin arrives with Dr. Lizard. Seeing him, Obadiah was the first to yell, Norman! Stop this idiot! He's undercover. Norman froze for a moment, and then saw Max charging Tony. What? Norman? Are you Norman Osborn? Tony was taken aback. The Green Goblin who repeatedly launched terrorist attacks turned out to be Norman Osborn. Green Goblin glanced at Tony and didn't answer him. Max, you go and help Connors install the lizard serum, and let me play with Tony Stark. Green Goblin threw Dr. Lizard down, on top of a tall building in the industrial park. There was a transmitter already installed there. Only Connors needed to inject his own blood, atomize the serum, and spray it to every part of the city corner. At that time, countless people will start to mutate into lizards. Humph. Don't order me. Norman, Dr. Connors yelled, and then ran into the distance. Don't think that he has a good relationship with Norman. If Norman fired 873 and forced him to inject immature serum into his body, he would not have become the ghost he is now. The current cooperation is only because the two parties share common goals and interests. Max still listened to Norman, gave up attacking Tony, and caught up with Dr. Lizard. His place is topped by Green Goblin. The round begins. Green Goblin sneered that the flight device fired several miniature missiles. Tony hurriedly avoided, but was still affected. There were constant explosions in the sky, and the little Chili below looked terrified. Facing the siege of the two, Tony seemed precarious. Beside her, Phil Coulson and another surviving agent were also nervously watching the battle. Phil, didn't you say that you are from the Land Bureau? It's the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency, Miss Potts. Pepper swears, shit, now is not the time to be entangled in addressing. Let your bureau send someone to help Tony. Sorry, the support from the bureau will take some time, and I'm afraid it won't be of much use. Phil Coulson smiled wryly. Facing this group of monsters, what can these ordinary agents do? They are just agents, not the army. While Pepper was helping Tony find reinforcements, he was also looking for them himself. JARVIS, connect me to Sun Wuming, as fast as possible. Mandatory. The only helper Tony can think of is Sun Wuming. Although it is not clear what Sun Wuming's strength is, the only thing is the terrifying speed. If you can't beat it, can't you still run? The only problem is how to persuade him. The two of them just met on both sides of the friendship. Sir, it has been connected. You actually called me when you were free. Haven't you been beaten to death? Sun Wuming said with some surprise. Fac, you know, I'm watching the live broadcast, and I have to say, you're pretty good at hiding. Sun Wuming stood on a high platform in the distance, admiring the scene of Iron Man running away with his head in his arms, and took a few photos from time to time. When money is tight in the future, you can use these photos to find a big dog to exchange for some pocket money. I dare not say how many, but there must be 18 million. Help me. You can do whatever you want. Tony said anxiously. For the first time, he hated himself for having such a smart mind. Why he developed Stark Industries weapons so well. Norman's full body of weapons, SEC, is his product. Tony hates his former self. Sorry, I have already promised others that I will not intervene in this battle. This is her battle. Who? your little spider girlfriend? Yes, she has come. Tony dodged Obadiah's impact again, looked down, and Luwin had already come to the scene swinging cobweb. He fell decisively and landed on the ground. See you again, Spider-Woman. I haven't seen you, Iron Man. Gwen said strangely. It's a pity, the memory is not good at such a young age, this morning. Tony reminded. Gwen was stunned. You are, Tony Stark? No, you know me. Gwen was a little depressed. Today, two people revealed her identity at once. Definitely, thanks to your boyfriend. Well, this is not the time to say that power bank and reptiles are messing with something. My gut tells me that must be bad. Tony spoke quickly, and Gwen nodded, shooting the cobweb toward the roof. I understand. I'll leave this to you. No. Tony was dumbfounded. He wanted Spider-Woman to cooperate with him, to get rid of Iron Cho and Green Goblin first, and then deal with those two together. Why did you leave? Okay. Tony sighed. The matter had come to an end. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and entangle himself with the Iron Bully again. Seeing Gwen's movements, Green Goblin distracted part of her attention and tried to prevent her from approaching the launcher, but Gwen dodged them astutely. Spider-Woman, standing beside Connors, Max, who had been silent for a long time, saw Gwen, and became agitated instantly, and his body escaped uncontrollably with an electric arc. Hey! B********************************* D. Don't touch my transmitter. Dr. Lizard shouted dissatisfied. Max, Gwen jumped up and came to the high platform. Seeing that the timer on the launcher had started, she wanted to rush to stop it. However, after the electric man saw her, the last bit of sanity disappeared completely, and the powerful electric current overwhelming the sky. In an instant, the flames shot up into the sky. This is an industrial area, and countless precision relics and circuits exploded at the moment. I should have hit harder last time. Gwen's eyes under the mask turned cold. She used to feel sorry for Max's tragic experience, and she also tolerated everything during the battle. She subdued the opponent with a water gun and handed it over to the police. Even Gwen felt a little pity for him, but now Gwen is completely awakening. A hateful person must have pity, but it is not me who caused your tragedy. Since you have become an enemy, you should go all out. Gwen clenched her fists tightly, avoiding the arc gracefully, and used the surrounding buildings to shuttle around, constantly weaving spider webs. Dr. Lizard looked at her vigilantly, and did not join the battle rashly. The most important thing for him now is to ensure that the launcher is successfully activated. After the lizard serum is sprayed out, it will not be too late for him to deal with Spider-Woman. Gwen also guessed what Dr. Lizard was thinking, and sat secretly to prepare. Suddenly, Gwen stopped and waved to Max in the air. Come here. The completely brainless Max obediently released a powerful electric current. Gwen took off nimbly. Dr. Lizard didn't pay attention at first, but when he saw the metal tower behind Gwen, he instantly understood something, and shouted, Stop! You idiot! But it was too late. The iron tower was blown away by the electric man's attack, and the falling direction was exactly where the transmitter was. Dr. Lizard still wanted to rely on his body to resist, but a cobweb shot towards him and tied his tail. Gwen forcefully pulled Dr. Lizard to him, and kicked him in the opposite direction. Rumble! The launcher whined and was smashed to pieces. Quietly, you did a good job. Dr. Lizard roared. One jumped into the air, and punched Electro-Optic Man. After being beaten, the Electron will naturally fight back. The Electron Dr. Lizard trembled all over, and even smelled the smell of barbecued meat. But Spider-Woman can't help but fight. Dr. Lizard thought the same way. So, Gwen had to face Dr. Lizard and be careful of electric current. Dr. Lizard wants to take revenge on Electro, and also deal with Gwen, the culprit. Electro mainly stares at Gwen. Dr. Lizard hits him and he hits back. The scene was extremely chaotic, until a heavy object falls from the sky. Boom! Tony fell heavily to the roof, drawing a spark on the ground. The balance between the three was broken. Sorry to bother you? Tony smiled awkwardly. He was extremely embarrassed at the moment. His battle armor was damaged, and the reactor on his chest flickered. You lost so quickly? Gwen asked in disbelief. False winter is against the law, Mr. Stark. No, I'm just out of shape today. Tony felt very humiliated, especially since Gwen had successfully completed the task and destroyed the launcher. It made him look even more useless. My reactor is old, the output power is greatly limited, and there are still many weapon systems that have not been installed. The most despicable thing is that all the weapons they use are developed by me. Tony said indignantly, it wasn't they who defeated me, but I who defeated me. Gwen was completely speechless, unable to understand the Playboy's brain circuit. Is now the time to count on this? Is this to let her face the 4 villains alone? 3 more will fly. TSK, Spider-Woman, have you figured out how to die? Be eaten by Connors, or die under my bomb. At this time, Green Goblin and Iron King also rushed over. The good news is that Tony is not completely useless just now. At least he destroyed the flight system of the Iron King, and now he can't fly. The bad news is that, due to his massive size, the Iron King is well stocked with weapons. It's just in time, save me to find you, Green Goblin. Profound. Osborn, he's Norman Osborn, and in that iron shell is my company's shareholder, Obadiah Stine. Tony acted as the commentator. No. Gwen looked at Tony as if she was mentally ill, and then at the two enemies opposite. Is your group of billionaires too boring to live a leisurely life? It's okay to wear a battle suit and come out to harm society. It's better for my Wuming family. Boom. Gwen dodged, avoiding the electric arc, and the roof was blasted open. His attack was like a signal, and Green Goblin and others also attacked tacitly. Lizard Man is a tank at the front, Iron King is a shooter hiding behind to provide firepower, Electroman is a magician, lightning slashing, Green Goblin is a jungler, taking a cold shot from time to time. Gwen was surrounded by dangers, all relying on the spider's reaction, and the agility that has been increased in recent days to constantly pull. But 4-on-1 is too stupid, especially the hot weapons used by Iron Overlord and Norman, which pose the greatest threat to her. The time for Gwen to cultivate chi is too short, and with his current strength, he still can't resist the bomb. Defeat is already a matter of time. Tony wanted to help, but he couldn't do it. He wanted Electro to hit him to recharge his batteries, but with the existence of Gwen, he was directly ignored by the Electric Man. Bang bang, the Lizard Man who was rushing towards Gwen suffered a heavy blow, and George came out of the hole just blasted by the Electric Man, holding a shotgun. Dad. Mr. Director. Gwen was startled, she was so focused on fighting that she didn't realize that George was chasing after her. Outside the industrial park, the lights of police cars flickered. I'll support you. No, it's too dangerous here. Get out of here. Gwen said eagerly, sending out a qigong wave in her hand, hitting Green Goblin's flight controller, and the sudden impact made him lose his composure. The balance fell. I asked you to come, so I should stand by your side. George said firmly, none of you can run away. A missile rose from Iron Overlord's shoulder. Tony's face changed drastically. Go. This is the Jericho missile. Gwen's expression also changed. She had also heard of the name of the Jericho missile, and the latest product of Stark Industries. The military will come to buy it. Without further ado, Gwen picked up George and jumped off the building. Tony also used the last momentum to forcefully fly up, but it was too late, they had been locked by missiles. The Green Goblins laughed wildly, and the missiles were fired from Obadiah's body. No, Gwen was desperate, and her spider telepathy had never been so sensitive, as if reminding her that her death was approaching. However, the next moment, a blue shockwave descended from the sky, covering the laughing foursome, as well as the Jericho missile that hadn't gone far. Aha! Green Goblin and others who were still laughing wildly just now let out screams, and their figures also quickly dissipated, and finally turned into dust between heaven and earth. Rumble! The powerful shockwave directly sent Gwen flying tens of meters, and landed heavily on the ground. Mr. George groaned in pain, his bones were broken. Tony also smashed into the pile of construction materials, clanging and rattling. Gwen raised her head in surprise, and subconsciously looked in one direction, but it was still a step too late, and I didn't see the person I thought in my heart. Only a touch of orange-yellow close corner was seen. Gwen smiled. Episode 65. Tony's Promise. Iron Man's famous scene is born. The buzzing of the siren was getting closer, and Gwen let go of her excitement and looked at George with concern. Dad, are you okay? No, it's all right, it's just a broken rib. George took a deep breath, and now he felt severe pain all over his body when he moved, and then he forced himself to ask, Gwen, the last attack was a Saiyan? Yes, Dad. Gwen whispered. After thinking for a while, he added, the Saiyan is Wuming. Now that George knew her identity, Gwen felt that Wuming had to be mentioned, at least to make Dad mentally prepared. What? George opened his mouth. At this time, Tony also came over and thanked Gwen. Spider-Woman, thank you for your help. Without you, I might become a dead billionaire. Gwen shook her head. No, it has nothing to do with you. I'm just here to solve the trouble I left behind. Even if you want to thank, it shouldn't be me. Tony naturally knew who Gwen was talking about, but right now was not the time to talk about this. Pepper had already arrived under the protection of several agents, and a police car and an ambulance also drove up in front of him. Tony. Tony. Are you all right? Little Pepper ran to Tuayo, caressing the damaged battle armor eagerly. Relax, Pepper, I'm fine, better than ever. With Miss Spider's help, Obadiah and the others are no match for me at all. Tony repeatedly comforted him. After this crisis, he can also face up to his own heart. The little Pepper in front of him is the woman he wants to be with for the rest of his life. Gwen looked at him disdainfully. At this time, Phil Coulson came to Gwen with his standard smile. Hi, I'm Phil Coulson, a high-level agent of the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Agency. Can I chat with you, Spider-Woman? What game? Gwen tilted her head. Has anyone ever said that your name is too long for others to remember? You are right, in fact, such a long name does bring some troubles to work. Phil Coulson nodded approvingly. We're already working on it. Okay, let's talk next time, after you change your name to a simple one. Now Gwen has a lot of opinions on all the United States government departments. If it weren't for their ineffective supervision, today's troubles would not be so big. Today, half of the innocent people who died because of Green Goblin and others should be blamed on the government. Watching George get into the ambulance, Gwen made a perfunctory sentence, launched the cobweb, and left the spot. She is very eager to see Wuming now. In the shortest time, Gwen came to Sun Wuming's home. Pushing open the door, he saw the young man sitting in the living room, waving at her. "Come back, supper is ready for you." Gwen took off the mask, threw herself into his arms and kissed him, and hugged his neck tightly with both hands, with great strength, as if she wanted to rub her body into his body, so that the two would not be separated from each other. A few minutes passed before Gwen let go. Her lips were a little swollen. "Wuming, I won't say thank you to you, because my whole body is yours. Wait for my birthday, okay? Similarly, I don't want to hear thank you for me from your mouth." Sun Wuming pressed against Gwen's forehead and pecked her lips. "Okay, seeing that you don't have time to eat supper like this, go back quickly. The days to come will be long." "Well, I love you." Gwen nodded vigorously. She knew that Helen would be very anxious when she learned that George was injured, and she had to go back quickly. The next day, the whole of the United States, and indeed the world, was overwhelmed by what happened in New York last night. The villains appeared one after another, and two sci-fi mechas fought in the street. The chaotic scene made people think that the end of the world was coming. Thousands of people were killed and injured, several streets in Manhattan were destroyed, and the Stark Industrial Park was beyond recognition. Originally, since the closing of the weapons department, Stark's stock fell again, and finally stopped a few days ago, but this morning when the market opened, it directly plummeted by 20%. The media is all over the world trying to find Tony to ask about the relationship between one of the armors and the Stark industry last night. But he came to Sun Wuming's house again in the vortex of the storm. "Where's your spider girlfriend?" "I went to the hospital to see Mr. George." Sun Wuming yawned. "Don't think of ways to maintain the stock price. What are you doing here? The stock price is for outsiders to see. It would be better if it falls a little bit more, and I can collect more." Tony shook the wine glass in his hand, which he brought himself. Since there was no wine in Sun Wuming's house, he prepared it himself, took a few bottles of good wine, and put them in Sun Wuming's house. Seeing Tony's oblivious actions, Sun Wuming didn't care. "It just so happens that these wines can be given to Mr. George. By the way, are you interested in buying some stocks? I can guarantee that you will be rewarded handsomely every year." "No, I have a new goal." Sun Wuming shook his head. "What? There are more valuable investment products than my company?" Stark retorted unconvinced. "With the arc reactor, he can completely dominate the global energy industry, and then he will just lie down and count the money. He doesn't believe that there is any company with more prospects than his Stark Industries." "Yes, Osborne Company." Sun Wuming's tone was calm. Tony was taken aback, and after thinking about it, he realized that it was true. With such a big incident this time, even the chairman was blasted into scum. Osborne Industry must be disrupted. Plus Dr. Lizard, Electron is also inextricably linked with Osborne. It is possible that the company will go bankrupt directly. Sun Wuming's vision is quite poisonous. At this time, Osborne's stock price will definitely fall to an exaggerated level, but the foundation is still there. After it survives, it will be another gold-swallowing behemoth. If it wasn't for Tony knowing that the United States government would not allow him to control the two major technology companies alone, maybe he would have been tempted. Thinking of this, he happily asked, "Do you need me to do something? Last night Osborne harmed me quite badly. He even hit me with my weapon." This tone must be taken. Tony was still a little arrogant. Obviously he wanted to thank Sun Wuming for his help last night, but he abruptly found an excuse for himself. Sun Wuming didn't reveal it, and nodded lightly. "You can really help. You have to hold a press conference in the afternoon. Just release the news that Norman Osborn is Green Goblin, otherwise the stock price won't fall." Tony responded immediately. Before leaving, his face was very tangled, and he held back for a long time before he said, "Well, thank you, and thank you little girlfriend. If you need me anywhere, you can come and find me at any time. My address has been sent to your phone." Sun Wuming waved his hand. "Don't worry, I will come to you tomorrow. I hope your scientific research ability can produce what I need." Hearing that Sun Wuming was questioning his brain, Tony retorted unconvinced, "Don't worry, there is no product in this world that Tony can't make." In the afternoon, the press conference held by Stark Industries was already overcrowded, and there were still people outside, constantly eager to squeeze in. Backstage, Pepper was fixing Tony's suit, and Tony was still chattering. "He actually doesn't believe in my technology. I'm Tony Stark. As long as it's something related to technology, who dares to doubt me?" "Okay, Tony, they saved you, and they saved me. Without you, I don't know what I would do." As she spoke, Ziagiali's nose became a little sour again. The experience last night left a deep impression on her. Tony quickly hugged her to comfort her. This time, Phil Coulson came over, and Pepper quickly pushed Tony away, straightened his posture, and wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes. Phil Coulson first said hello to Pepper, then handed the paper to Tony, and said softly, "Here is your alibi. You were on the yacht last night, We have a certificate from the port, and the testimony of 50 beauties from all over the world. Remember, it is your bodyguard who drives the mecha to fight. You really understand me, but the news is a little behind. I have already corrected my evil ways. Tony muttered, looking at the card. It was full of excuses that the officials could not go to the official, and all kinds of questions were prepared. He was sure that the crowd of reporters also had the trust of this group of people. Tony couldn't help but feel a little curious about Phil Coulson's department. What about Obadiah? What script did you have for him? Tony asked. He went on holiday, and we regret that small aircraft have a poor safety record. The bodyguard's rhetoric is too bad. Happy is so fat, he can't wear it at all. Happy, who had been staying by the side, was taken aback for a moment. Boss, no personal attacks. I am strong, just read it, we're professionals. Phil Coulson was still smiling, and it was hard for someone as difficult as Tony to feel bad for him. Maybe that's why Nick Fury values Phil Coulson so much. Click. 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 The flash flashed like crazy, and Tony stood on the podium where he often appeared, feeling strange and bewildered for once. I haven't shown up for a few days, Tony said mechanically, his tone stumbling. Forget it, I'll read it from the script. There was a burst of laughter from the audience. Tony pulled out his speech. Someone speculates that I myself participated in the chaos that was released in the Stark Industrial Park. I'm sorry, Mr. Stark. A beautiful woman raised her hand eagerly. Do you really think we believe it's a bodyguard in a suit? Please don't call me a superhero, that's ridiculous. Tony spread his hands. Ask for flowers. No, I haven't. Okay. Tony started talking nonsense, and Rhodes couldn't stand it anymore, so he had to remind him, read it from the script. Okay, actually. Tony paused, raised his head, met everyone's gaze, and closed the speech in his hand. I am Iron Man. After the voice fell, all the reporters stood up instantly, and the whole press conference entered a state of frenzy. In the hospital, Gwen and Helen accompanied George on the hospital bed, watching the live news. He actually admitted it. There is disbelief in Gwen's voice. Shouldn't superhero be anonymous and separate the real identity from the hero's identity? Isn't Stark afraid to make trouble in his own life? It's a bit of a surprise, but he's a Stark, so it's no surprise. Compared to the B*************** D things I did before, I think this time is considered reliable. Eating the fruit, George commented that the injury last night was not too serious, but it also caused him to break 3 ribs. He won't be able to get out of bed for at least this month. For this reason, Helen excitedly asked George to resign immediately, and this dangerous job could no longer be done. For a monthly salary of several thousand yuan, what kind of life is playing? George could only smile wryly at this, but he didn't agree. George looked at his daughter and blinked. I don't think everyone can be as free and easy as Stark. After all, he has a background in strength, and he has no relatives. No one can threaten him. Definitely. Gwen nodded obediently, using Wuming's words. Stark is a conspicuous bag, and Spider-Woman will never do such a thing. George smiled gratifiedly. The experience last night made him think about many things. He will not interfere with his daughter's choice, but support him as much as possible. But some necessary advice is still to be said. Seeing that Gwen agreed so obediently, George realized that his daughter had really grown a lot. The press conference was still going on, and it should have caused such a stir that Tony should have been taken by Rod and Phil Coulson. But he promised Sun Wuming that he would expose Green Goblin's identity, so he chose to stay and answer the reporters' questions. Do you know Spider-Woman? I just met her. She is a very good person. In the future, Stark Industries will provide Spider-Woman with technical support as much as possible to help her better fight crime and maintain law and order in New York. I heard that in the battle last night, you were only a support, and the main force was Spider-Woman? Slander. This is pure slander. I just used too much force, resulting in insufficient stamina, but without me, can Spider-Woman survive? No. Why does Green Goblin cooperate with Obadiah? Is this a conspiracy by Stark Industries? Seeing that someone finally got an idea, Tony was shocked. The first thing I want to stress is that everything Obadiah does is personal and has nothing to do with Stark Industries. Secondly, the reason Green Goblin attacked me was because Norman Osborn was jealous of my talent. You mean, Green Goblin is Norman Osborn? A reporter exclaimed. Yes, I have submitted relevant evidence to the police, including Obadiah's call records with Osborn. The reporters had an O******** again. They didn't expect to eat such a big melon. Mr. Stark, can you tell me about that terrifying blue beam of cold light at the end? Is that the latest weapon of Stark Industries? No comment. The press conference was finally over. Rhodes hammered Tony's chest. Do you know how much trouble you caused me? Sorry, Rod. Tony hugged him, but I have to. After a busy day, Tony returned to his mansion until late at night, only to find that the room was pitch black. Jarvis? Sir, I'm here. Tony didn't answer. He saw in front of the window a man who blended perfectly into the environment. If it wasn't for the dim light from the arc reactor, he wouldn't have seen it at all. I'm Iron Man. Do you think you're the only superhero? Stark. After speaking, Nick Fury turned around slowly, and stared at Tony closely with his one eye exposed outside. Tony walked over to the sofa, meeting his eyes without fear. Are you sick? You can't see that big Spider-Woman? Thank you for your support, there will be more in a while, the little author is writing. In addition, let's talk about the matter of transforming into a Super Saiyan. It is impossible to transform after an ending. The time point is during the period of the Avengers Alliance, but the author will not disclose how it becomes smaller. There is an outline, readers, please rest assured. Episode 66. SHIELD's Psychological Profile of Sun Wuming, Dragon Ball Radar. Unbeknownst to Sun Wuming, Nick Fury's first conversation with Tony Stark ended badly, with Tony calling the police. As S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Fury would not be taken away by the police just like that. He just couldn't hold back on his face. After talking so much with Tony, the other party still thought he was a liar. Director, Phil Coulson approached cautiously, although he couldn't see Fury's face, he was sure it was bad. Fury asked aloud, how is the task assigned to you? There's no progress, and Spider-Woman doesn't give me a chance to talk at all. Phil Coulson shook his head, he could tell that Gwen had no interest in his origins, nor did he want anything to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. Compared with someone with an eccentric temperament like Tony, it is more troublesome for Spider-Woman to express her attitude clearly, especially when the means are limited everywhere. If you act too aggressively, what if you offend Sun Wuming? Phil Coulson said it was too tricky. Can this task be handed over to others? Deduct your 1-month bonus. Under Phil Coulson's constipated face, Fury finally felt much better. Then think about what to do now. Since that woman left the Earth, Fury has been looking for opportunities to form an extraordinary team to deal with crises from all sides. Tony was the one person he valued the most. After making the battle armor, he has a strong combat effectiveness, a genius mind, and a rich family background. With his joining, the Avengers he formed not only didn't cost money, but even if they couldn't, they could get points from Tony. Secondly, Spider-Woman is also in his consideration, but only 993 is the backup candidate. Tony can find out Gwen's identity, and so can S.H.I.E.L.D. Gwen is too young, but he has a kind heart and good strength. As long as he is brainwashed, ideological education, he can be trained to be the next captain of the United States. However, both plans were frustrated, which made Fury very uncomfortable. Among them, Sun Wuming played a huge role. Fury also has a lot of understanding of Sun Wuming's personality after many tests and writings by SHIELD psychologists, have the most basic human bottom line, and are willing to abide by most of the rules that do not affect you. At the same time, because of his mysterious strength, Sun Wuming lacks respect for the law and authority. Otherwise he would not have gone to the Continental Hotel to be a killer at a young age. More importantly, Sun Wuming is extremely indifferent to life, except for the relatives and friends around him. He doesn't care about the life and death of other people at all. He had no intention of making a move for several major incidents in a row. The only 2 times he made a move, the first time the opponent had an unknown interest in it, and the second time it was for his girlfriend. The final conclusion given by the psychologist is very strange. This is a dangerous ordinary person. He is said to be dangerous because of the power he possesses, and his contempt for the law, which gives him the ability to flip the table. And saying that he is an ordinary person is also because once there is no external interference, the life of the other party is no different from that of ordinary people, and he is extremely restrained in his inner desires. This kind of evaluation made Nick Fury very tangled, and he didn't know what reason to use to persuade the other party to agree to join his Avengers plan. Just like facing a quill, there is no way to speak. Seeing his chief standing on the side of the road, blowing the cold wind and meditating, Phil Coulson didn't dare to disturb him. After a full half an hour, I got the order. Arrange, I want to see him soon. Mobilize the power of the Continental Hotel, and my part of the funds, to collect enough shares of Osborn. Disobedient? If you are disobedient, you will be killed, and another obedient one will go up. This piece of fat must be gnawed off by me. Sun Wuming was talking on the phone, and Gwen rolled her eyes, and stretched out her white feet in front of Sun Wuming, because her thumb was still twitching mischievously. The delicate instep is crystal clear, and even the blood vessels under the skin and the pink and white crescent under the bracket are clearly visible. Seeing Sun Wuming moved his index finger. Glancing at the girl angrily, Sun Wuming found that after the Green Goblin incident, Gwen became more and more daring. Scratching the soles of the little feet lightly, Gwen retracted her mischievous feet as if she had been electrocuted. Only then did Sun Wuming continue to deal with Winston. If you don't have enough money, you can use the stocks you bought as collateral, then find a bank loan to buy them, and wait until you have enough Osborn Industry, and then buy the bank. I don't need to say such a simple operation. After a while, Sun Wuming hung up the phone. Honey, are you going to buy Osborn Industries and become the boss? Gwen leaned forward. Sun Wuming shook his head. No, it's just a whim. After all, we are 2 big eaters. I really can't afford it without making more money. Gwen bit the boy's shoulder reproachfully. You are the king of big stomachs, and I have the stomach of a little bird. Sun Wuming rolled his eyes secretly. Yes, you have a small bird stomach, 50 Big Macs for a meal, this bird is so small. The two fought for a while, and Gwen put on the spider battlesuit. Yesterday Stark held a press conference, and today it's the turn of the police. There are people in the court who are easy to handle. Ever since he found out that Gwen was Spider-Woman, George's attitude changed immediately. What Spider-Woman is the enemy of NYPD? Nonsense. That's a vigilante, a righteous man who maintains law and order in New York. Under George's strong request, the New York Police Department decided to give Gwen the title of honorary police officer, and empowered law enforcement to help the weak in a legal and compliant manner. It's a double standard to the extreme. If the Spider-Man of this world is Peter Parker, Sun Wuming can guarantee that the attitude of the other party will definitely not be so good. Canceling the wanted is already the limit. However, he is not opposed to this kind of double standard. If you want to treat your own people in a businesslike manner, you will be impartial. Such a person is too scary. Gwen was very happy about it. Not because of the extra rights and the title of honorary policeman, but because of her father's recognition of her. Gwen's mindset had changed. Although she will still play the role of Spider-Woman, it is different from the previous dedication and caution. Now Gwen has completely let go of herself, and when she encounters criminals, she must deal with them severely, not for justice, but because I don't like it. It doesn't matter what the public criticizes, I do my own thing, and you can't influence me even if you talk about breaking the sky. In short, it is mainly due to an interest. And not long after Gwen left, Sun Wuming was also preparing to go out. He made an appointment with Tony to meet today. Back in the bedroom, Sun Wuming took out one of the dragon balls, pointed his sword between his eyebrows, and searched for Tony's breath. Disappeared in place. At Tony's house, Tony from at the moment successfully touched Pepper after some affectionate confession, and the two were exchanging each other's saliva enthusiastically. Jarvis suddenly spoke. Sir, Sun Wuming has arrived. Tell him to wait, I'll answer the door right away. I mean, he's behind you. Shocked, Tony turned his head suddenly, and saw Sun Wuming standing behind him playfully, saw the two stop, and shook his head with some unfinished thoughts. Mr. Sun, thank you for saving Tony, I have something to do first. Pepper hurriedly sorted out the messy clothes, and then ran out in a hurry. Fack, when did you come here? Jarvis. Why did you let him in without telling me? Tony didn't show embarrassment at all. He was just shocked by the disappearance of Sun Wuming and the loopholes in Jarvis. Jarvis spoke again. If he was a real person, there would definitely be grievances in his voice. Sir, Mr. Sun Wuming appeared in the room out of thin air. After calculation, there is a high probability that it is a space transfer technology. The current conditions cannot be cracked. You have mastered space wormhole technology? Teach me. Tony's eyes lit up. Sun Wuming looked at him suspiciously. Don't even think about it. You haven't even met the conditions for cultivating chi, and it's just a dream to learn teleportation. Chi? Is it the kind of ability you cultivated? Chinese Kung Fu? Tony is well known and memorized. When mentioning chi, he immediately thinks of the ancient and mysterious East. My fighting teacher taught me some fighting skills, I'll show you. With that said, Tony struck a professional pose. Exhale, inhale, 1 whip, 2 whips, bang bang bang, urine quivering, call it a day. Tony asked excitedly, how is it? Sun Wuming covered his face in pain. He was sure that Tony was cheated by his fighting teacher. Stop wasting my time, Tony, I'm here on business. Sun Wuming took out the dragon ball from his pocket. I need you to help me build a radar to search for the same material as mine. Tony took it over, looked at it for a moment, and said, I need to do a detailed analysis before I can give you an answer. Sun Wuming solemnly reminded, don't let me break it, even if I sell you, I can't afford it. Impossible. Tony muttered, I'm Tony Stark, and there's nothing more expensive than me in this world. Even though he said so, his movements became softer, because Tony could hear the seriousness in Sun Wuming's words. This bead must be very important to him. The two came to the underground laboratory. Surrounded by a bunch of professional instruments, Tony entered the working state, while Sun Wuming sat aside, playing with the mechanical arm for a while and looking at a bunch of luxury cars connected to the garage. The cars that can be collected by Tony include many classic cars, besides supercars. One of them, a 1973 Ford Capri, fits his aesthetic perfectly, and looks powerful. Do you like it? If you like it, just drive away in a while. Tony came over. No, I don't even have a driver's license. Flying is faster than running. Sun Wuming refused. It's up to you, but you're right, since I got the battle armor, I rarely touch these cars. After Tony nodded in agreement, he snapped his fingers. Okay, after 3 hours of research by a genius like me, the radar you want can be made. Really? Sun Wuming was a little happy. Well, Tony, you will be my boomer from now on. I'll do it, it will be done. Tony raised his head proudly. He enjoyed Sun Wuming's shock very much. Although I can't beat you, but when it comes to technological inventions, you are not my opponent. Then, Tony explained to Sun Wuming the principle of the radar he made. After testing, the Dragon Ball itself has another magnetic field, which is very different from the magnetic field of ordinary objects. It is similar to life, but not the same. As long as I make a specific magnetic field detector, add the assistance of JARVIS, and improve the computing power. It will be made soon. Sun Wuming nodded approvingly, although I don't understand. As long as you can make it for me, it will be fine. Tony looked contemptuous. Sun Wuming asked another question. Can you make a gravity chamber? Gravity chamber? Tune, up or down? Tony asked back. Turn it up, the higher the better. It's really troublesome. Tony frowned. Now he has no contact with alien technology and materials, and his vision is still restricted by traditional physics. It was not until the Chitauri invaded the Earth and exploded the gold coins that Tony started his cheating life completely. I haven't sent you an answer yet, wait for me to think about it. Alright, then think about it, I'll go first. Sun Wuming wasn't in a hurry, he couldn't do it, he could just wait until Chitauri came. You leave the Dragon Ball, I need to analyze his magnetic field. 0.2 inch. Seeing that Sun Wuming was about to leave, Tony quickly said, also, can you tell me what this is? It's a good thing, but I'm not sure if it can be used. You will know in the future. Sun Wuming chooses to keep Dragon Ball a secret, and Tony is a dude with a strange ability. He can always screw up a good thing. The most famous one is Crisis of Ultron. Sun Wuming was really afraid that after Tony knew the role of Dragon Ball, he would make some troubles, and he would have to end it at that time. Okay. Seeing that his tone was so strict, Tony had no choice but to give up. After leaving Tony's home, Sun Wuming went to the Continental Hotel again. The Osborne industry has a market value of tens of billions of dollars and has connections with the military. It is very troublesome to collect enough. Even though the high table has connections with some government members, it is not that simple to accomplish such a big move. So, Sun Wuming thought about what he could do to help. Although he doesn't know anyone, he can kill. Tell him which high-level person is in the way, and kill him tonight until a sensible one is replaced. After listening to Sun Wuming's approach, Winston broke into a cold sweat, quickly persuaded. Even a killer can't be so lawless, right? At that time, most politicians will be hostile. How will the Continental Hotel do business in the future? Winston promised to complete the acquisition within 1 month, so he could temporarily coax this master. And when Sun Wuming got home, before he could do it for a while, the doorbell rang. When he opened the door, his face suddenly turned cold. Why are you here? Episode 67. Hydra wants to recruit Sun Wuming. There are all kinds of nuisances in the world, but there are a few recognized ones. The first is self-righteous. The second type is the prostitute who wants to give credit for everything. The third type is black people. The man in front of him has it all. Nick Fury, a man who thinks he is protecting the world, but in fact, what he does is like a joker, which is ridiculous. The most hateful thing is that such a person doesn't know what he has done, and every time he does something stupid, he has to say, I did it to protect the Earth. But looking at this R's life, what contribution did he make? The Ancient One is not dead yet. The magicians in the holy place are still there. They face the invasion of evil gods from various latitudes every day. What kind of onion are you? Where did this N***** get the confidence to say that he protected the Earth with a big face? The most hateful thing is that this guy is still a ball king. He introduced the Skrulls to the Earth, and his trust in the Skrulls is much higher than that of the Earth people, and he even married a Skrull. After Thanos snapped his fingers, he even sent the Skrulls to change into their own appearance and stay in Blue Star to continue to control S.H.I.E.L.D., and he ran to the sky for vacation. What the hell are you in charge of Blue Star's external defense organization, and you handed it over to the aliens directly? What's the difference between that and surrender? It directly led to the secret invasion incident, and countless Skrulls quietly replaced the high-level human beings in an attempt to control Blue Star. Just seeing this Sun Wuming couldn't help but harden his fist. You know me? Nick Fury's one-eyed pupil narrowed sharply. It was an opening he had never imagined. Sun Wuming actually knew him? I don't know. I just hate N******. Go away. You are not welcome here. Nick Fury's face darkened even more. Mr. Saiyan, are you racist? Sun Wuming said impatiently, yes, I am discriminating against you and your race. If you don't accept it, you can go to court and sue me. I have a lot of lawyers to play with you. Hee, a killer who wantonly tramples on the law and kills like hemp will believe in the law. Nick Fury was humiliated repeatedly, and all the homework he had done before coming here was wiped out. He is known as the King of Agents, but once he is called N******, the DNA of these blacks will be dismantled, and his sanity will disappear instantly. I'm happy, you can control me. Sun Wuming looked at him coldly. Nick Fury, you can't afford to mess with me, so don't engage in unnecessary temptations. Let me see you appearing at my door next time. I directly blew up your tricurved wing building. Boom. After speaking, Sun Wuming closed the door directly, not wanting to see this unsightly guy again. Nick Fury was shocked back 2 steps in a daze. The hidden agents around appeared one after another. Phil Coulson walked up to Nick Fury and asked in a low voice, Boss, what should we do now? They heard all of Sun Wuming scolding through the headset just now. which is really ugly. In the United States, you can swear at black people with words starting with F, and you can greet their 18th generation ancestors. But as long as skin color is involved, except for their own ridicule, anyone who says it can blow them up. But Sun Wuming not only said, but also repeatedly mentioned that it was rubbing against the wound. The director who directly made them angry is still trembling. Nyobi. Nick Fury looked at the strange gazes of several of his subordinates and roared, "What else can I do?" Go back. Back at SHIELD headquarters, the time on the road finally allowed Nick Fury's sanity to retake the high ground. Although the messy things he has done are messy, but Nick Fury can become the director and develop Hydra hard for so many years. After all, he has some skills. Today's contact was unexpectedly bad. Sun Wuming knew him and also knew S.H.I.E.L.D. But how did the other party know? Through the Continental Hotel? Through Tony? Or other channels? Also, why do you hate yourself so much? Is it just because of skin color? No, through the way Sun Wuming looked at him, Nick Fury knew that the other party was hating him. A dangerous character who hates SHIELD, hates S.H.I.E.L.D. director. This is a very bad sign. Increase the threat level of Sun Wuming to 10, marked as extremely dangerous. Nick Fury ordered, "Director, what the other party has done doesn't seem to have reached this level." Deputy Commissioner Hill raised doubts. Maria Hill is not only the deputy director of SHIELD, Nick Fury's deputy, but also a nail inserted by the Security Council to monitor whether Nick Fury has abnormal behavior. You must know that SHIELD was established with the approval of the Security Council. Its authority is so high that most countries on the Blue Star have special privileges. Such a great authority must be checked and balanced. Medical doctor. Now Hill has some doubts about whether Fury's behavior is out of selfishness, a decision made without rational thinking. Level 10 threat represents the highest level in S.H.I.E.L.D. When necessary, tactical cartridges can be used to attack, no matter where the opponent is or whether there are civilians around. It is an assumption that it will not be an enemy as a last resort. She has also read Sun Wuming's file. Apart from his terrifying strength, the things he did can't even be ranked in the 3rd rank, and he doesn't have antisocial personality. In other words, the other party also saved New York once, and if you publicize it well, you can treat it as a positive person. Hill, I'm the S.H.I.E.L.D. director. Nick Fury said in a deep voice. Nick, you'll regret it. Bang. The door to the chief's office was shut, and Nick Fury didn't care about Hill's attitude. The top priority is to increase the power of SHIELD as much as possible, so as to have the hope of fighting against Sun Wuming. In his mind, a figure holding a shield flashed, and a gleam appeared in his eyes. Hill carried out Nick Fury's orders after all. At the same time, she also reported the matter to the Security Council. Pierce, who was in charge of SHIELD's affairs, sneered after reading the report. The king of agents is also stupid sometimes, and when there is no way to eliminate the enemy, he regards the enemy as a deadly enemy, which is a big taboo. Minister, what should we do? Hydra agent Sitwell stood at the desk with a respectful expression. Don't worry about it, our people will avoid any actions related to Sun Wuming, just let Fury go to die. Pierce said decisively, and after thinking about it, he added another sentence. And about Spider-Woman, don't mess with her. Yes. Sitwell left with the order and Pierce was lost in thought. After learning more about Sun Wuming's life, he had a bold idea. Shall I recruit him to HYDRA? If one head is cut off, 2 heads will grow back. Can HYDRA survive from being targeted again and again by continuously absorbing elite talents, and then working hard towards a common ideal? As for what ideal? That definitely is to rule the world. Secretly, Hydra relied on the algorithm researched by Dr. Zola to calculate the people who are a threat to HYDRA. On the list, Tony Stark, George Stacy, astronomy expert Dr. Selvig, Nick Fury. These threatening names are impressively listed, but there is no Sun Wuming. This also shows from the side that under the status quo, Sun Wuming has no threat to HYDRA. If such a powerful existence can be pulled into the organization, then the power of Hydra will definitely be greatly enhanced. However, there are also some problems. That is, after Sun Wuming joins in, what kind of status will be given to him? If the level is low, not only can't show favor, but it is easy to turn against each other. If the level is high, I am afraid that other people in the organization will be dissatisfied. Pierce's head hurts thinking about it, but he has already made up his mind to find an opportunity to get close to Sun Wuming and test his reaction. New York, Queens. In a store, several farm implements were doing their traditional zero-yuan purchase. One farm implement pointed a gun at the boss, and the others were throwing goods into sacks. Also, always look at the price tag. It's not that they want to pick the expensive one, but it is stipulated in the law of the United States that if the robbery does not exceed $950, you will not be convicted of a felony. The sentence for felony crimes is generally about 3 to 10 years, while the sentence for misdemeanors is less than 1 year. If you are caught with a good attitude and actively plead guilty, the court will give you a lighter punishment, and 1 month of community labor will do. It is under this sick law that the $0 purchases in the United States are more rampant. Just when they were full of things and were about to leave quickly to find a place to sell their stolen goods, the glass of the store shattered, and a figure rushed in quickly. In a few moments of stunned farm tools, the farm tools with guns were kicked away, followed by a series of screams. After a while of dazzled, all the robbers lay on the ground wailing, clutching their legs in pain. Spider-Woman. Only then did the store owner see who it was. Hey, you are not injured. Gwen turned around and greeted, and at the same time launched Cobweb to trap several puppets tightly. No, thank you. The store owner said in a daze. You're welcome, you can report the loss of items to the police station, and someone will contact you to provide compensation. Plop. Plop. Several robbers were kicked out of the store one by Gwen, and then hung on the street lamp. Then Gwen walked away gracefully. The store owner was stunned. Is there any compensation? He thought that the damage to the glass and shelves would have to be repaired at his own expense. Some people who didn't believe it called the police station, and the answer he got shocked him. It was actually true. Soon the police will come to verify the amount of compensation. On the road, there were already many people surrounding the robbers who were still panting. It's really hard to hit, and the legs are broken. Since disappearing for a while and reappearing, Spider-Woman's shots have gotten heavier. It's too cruel, even criminals have human rights. Spider-Woman is committing a crime. A farmer said indignantly that perhaps it was the skin color of these robbers that resonated with him. Or maybe he was worried that when he robbed himself in the future, he would be so miserable. The person next to him sneered. Spider-Woman is an honorary police officer of the NYPD, with law enforcement powers. Please speak up. Beware of those lawsuits that will ruin your fortune. Farm Tool immediately shut up, his face changed, and he hurriedly left the scene. Others watched the excitement for a while and left one after another, but at the same time sighed that Spider-Woman's deterrent power was getting higher and higher. Overnight, all the negative comments about Spider-Woman on the internet and newspapers disappeared, and those media who criticized Spider-Woman received notices from the court. The worst editor-in-chief of the Daily Horn, he is burdened with. After more than a dozen lawsuits, his wife ran away with others. And those netizens who cursed Spider-Woman did not escape the sanctions, ranging from banning their accounts to warnings from lawyers. With the support of Stark Industries and several well-known law firms, as long as they go to court, these little guys will undoubtedly lose. Not only that, New York Police Chief George also changed his attitude towards Spider-Woman in the past. He not only awarded her the title of honorary police officer, but also punished her for some extreme actions. Defended. An honorary police officer is roughly equivalent to a regular police officer. A criminal's resistance is an attack on the police, and Spider-Woman is a legitimate self-defense. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm back. Gwen, who wandered outside for a while, returned to Sun Wuming's home, took off her headgear, and showed a pretty face. Today she kicked and broke the legs of 8 robbers and the fingers of 3 thieves. Such a record was unimaginable for Gwen before. In the past, she would only transfer the prisoner to the control department and hand it over to the police. But now, she felt that the law's punishment for these bad guys was too light, so she just let her make up for the real part. You came back just in time. I was going out just now. Do you want to come together? Sun Wuming came out of the bedroom, wearing orange exercise clothes. Where are you going? Gwen asked curiously. Tony just called me, he's already done the Dragon Ball radar, and I'm going over there. I won't go, hee hee. Gwen kissed Sun Wuming's cheek. I'll cook at home and wait for you. Okay, then I'll leave it to Chef Gwen. Sun Wuming smiled and patted the girl's head, then launched a teleport and disappeared. Gwen is very envious. When will she be able to meet the requirements of learning teleportation? Shaking his head, Gwen changed the battle suit and put on home clothes. Come to the kitchen and start preparing dinner. Like a little daughter-in-law waiting for her husband to return. Episode 68. The 6th Dragon Ball, Captain America Awakens. Why can't you show up at my house as a normal person? When Sun Wuming suddenly appeared in front of Tony for the second time, he was still taken aback, put down the cup in his hand and complained. Sun Wuming retorted without showing any weakness, it's a full 50 kilometers from my home. If it flies from the sky, the whole world will know that I'm here to find you. Is that good? Okay, I can't say no to you, you won. But if you suddenly come over when I do something, I will definitely sue you. Don't worry, with your physical fitness, the duration will generally not exceed 5 minutes. It is impossible for me to encounter such a small probability. 11. The two started bickering as soon as they met, and it was the first time that Tony found that someone's mouth was worse than his. If he couldn't beat him, he would really show Sun Wuming what Iron Man's anger is. But the reality is that, according to JARVIS calculations, it is simply impossible for him to withstand the energy attack that blasted Green Goblin and others into scum. Seeing that he couldn't say Sun Wuming at all, he wisely chose to shut up, and took out a glass of green liquid from the refrigerator and drank it down in one gulp. Sun Wuming asked knowingly, you don't hate fruit and vegetable drinks the most, so what's the matter with this glass of vegetable juice? Tony's face froze. Thinking of what he said before, he couldn't hold back his face, so he could only say stiffly, no, for my health I try things that I don't like, it's a challenge. Sun Wuming smiled without saying a word, he definitely knew the truth of the matter. Although the arc reactor saved Tony's life, the palladium contained in it would slowly penetrate into Tony's body and blood during the process of the arc reactor powering the armor, causing heavy metal poisoning. It is necessary to rely on a large number of vegetable juices to reduce the palladium content in the blood. But Sun Wuming didn't look too worried on Tony's face. As the smartest person in the world, Tony is still confident that he can find an element to replace palladium within a limited time. So it is far from the decadence and self-abandonment in Iron Man 2. Okay. This is the end of the health seminar. Tony was afraid that Sun Wuming would continue to ridicule him, so he quickly changed the subject, picked up a tablet computer from the table and handed it to Sun Wuming. This is what you want, let's see how it works first. You call this radar? Sun Wuming's mouth twitched. It was nothing like the Dragon Ball radar he imagined. Turn on the screen, and there is only one APPL name in the main business, which is Dragon Ball Ruda. Sun Wuming's face darkened even more. Tony saw his changes, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In order to take care of the scumbags, I specially made the simplest full mode, thank you. Sun Wuming didn't speak, just clicked on the app. Soon, the voice of JARVIS appeared. Dragon Ball has been detected within the radar range, a distance of 5 meters. Sun Wuming raised his head, glanced around, and found that the Dragon Ball was placed on the coffee table in the living room. Tony explained, I installed a copy of JARVIS and Stark Industries satellite for you. The powerful calculation ability can expand the detection range, but Dragon Ball's magnetic field is really too weak, and even then it can only detect within a radius of 10 kilometers. Sun Wuming nodded. No wonder no Dragon Balls in his house were detected. However, the range of 10 kilometers is not bad, much faster than him relying on the Continental Hotel to find it. Thank you, this time I owe you a favor. No, this is too cleansing. Tony emphasized, you can also ask the great Tony Stark for help in the future. Build the gravity chamber first and then brag. Sun Wuming looked at him with disdain, put his finger on the center of his eyebrows, and was about to leave, but was dragged back and stopped. F***K, just put up his pants and leave, I still have questions. Sun Wuming raised his middle finger, you didn't say anything was wrong just now, just let the fart go. Tony rolled his eyes and asked, has an agency calling itself SHIELD recently approached you, or your little spider girlfriend? Recently Tony searched for some information about the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, but there was very little information on the internet. When he tried to hack into this department, he was surprised to find that JARVIS was stopped. Even the Hexagon doesn't have such technology, which naturally aroused Tony's curiosity. I've been here a while ago. Sun Wuming replied casually, say what? The Superboy project? Do you agree? Tony's questions came in a flurry. If Sun Wuming agrees to join, he should also consider whether to go in and hang up a job. Nothing else is required, as long as it is higher than Sun Wuming. I, Tony, have a big shit, and I am not weaker than others. The person who came was AN***********, and I just sent him away. If you have time to play house with them, why don't you prepare some birthday presents for Gwendo? That's alright, I'll go first, call me. After finishing speaking, Sun Wuming disappeared. The director was just kicked away? Tony couldn't help laughing, however, playing tricks, since this guy doesn't like them, then I didn't join to be laughed at. Because of Sun Wuming's evaluation of SHIELD, Tony also extinguished his desire to contact them. If Nick Fury found out, would he vomit blood angrily? After thinking about it, Tony called Pepper again. Hey Pepper, get me some weapons. No, I'm not trying to restart the weapons department. I just want to donate to NYPD, yes, another $5 million, not now, next month, on the 20th. Last time Spider-Woman helped him a lot, Tony naturally wanted to repay him, but the person he chose to repay was George. This is the most suitable gift. Leaving Tony, Sun Wuming took the Dragon Ball radar around New York first. The speed was not too fast, because once his speed exceeded 500 kilometers per hour, Leda would not be able to react. Sadly, apart from a few in his house, and the one that was taken from Tony's house, there are no other Dragon Balls in New York City. But Sun Wuming is not in such a hurry. With the radar, he can slowly turn over the whole Earth. Back home, Sun Wuming couldn't help smiling when he saw Gwen busy in the kitchen. He enjoys this kind of life, living an ordinary life with the people he likes, without so many messy things. It would be great if there was someone evenly matched, or even stronger than him, to compete together. Gently hugging Gwen from behind, relying on spider telepathy, Gwen knew that Sun Wuming was back, and lightly pecked him on the face. Go and wash your hands, you can eat right away. When Sun Wuming finished washing his hands, the table was already full of food. Obviously there are only 2 people eating, but Gwen prepared a lot of meat, such as steak, lamb leg, roast chicken. After learning Guasian style from Sun Wuming, Gwen finally understood why Wuming could eat so much food every day without gaining weight. This is not going to make you fat, training so hard every day. It's not bad if you don't become skinny. Fortunately, she ate with Wuming every day, otherwise her own wallet would not be able to support her to eat so much every day. Does this count as being taken care of by Wuming? Gwen blushed slightly. It's a pity that a certain straight man was busy eating and couldn't see this beautiful scene. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to search for Dragon Balls, but I won't be outside all the time. After the meal, Sun Wuming said to Gwen that this time was different from going to the deep sea to practice. There was no need to be in a tense state all the time, just a few hours a day was enough. Gwen also nodded, indicating that she understood. Don't worry about me, the business is important. The next day, Sun Wuming started his journey to find the Dragon Balls. The JARVIS subsystem on the tablet helped Sun Wuming develop the most efficient search route. The initial location is the North Pole, looking for 7 or 8 hours a day, just like clocking into work, going home to rest if there is no gain. In the second week, Sun Wuming finally paid off. He found traces of the 5-star Dragon Ball from a hunter family in Saskatchewan within the Maple Leaf country. With only a price of $20,000, he got the Dragon Ball from the eyes of the Orion family. Sun Wuming didn't care either, let alone $20,000. Even if $20 million were exchanged for a Dragon Ball, he would still earn money with blood. At the same time, on the Greenland Peninsula, on the ice plain, search and rescue teams are cutting up the wreckage of a plane. After breaking through the entrance, several team members in winter clothing walked in. In a huge amount of ice, a man held a shield and fell asleep quietly. The leader, Phil Coulson, shouted excitedly into the communicator, "Sir, we found it. We found him." After a while, Nick Fury's calm voice came, "Bring him back, he has been asleep for too long." Beautiful pitch. It's really high and far, but it's a pity it flew out of bounds. The Dodgers have been reviewed again, and now it's 44. The crowd understands that with one swing of their bat, this guy can change the game again. In an old-fashioned single ward, the radio was broadcasting a fierce competition for hospital beds. The man lying on the hospital bed slowly opened his eyes. He has nothing but infusion tubes and life support equipment. He has a ruddy complexion, a strong body, strong muscles that prop up his clothes, and big chest muscles and buttocks. Exaggerate. It doesn't look like a sick person at all, but like a person who just woke up after a long sleep, with a dazed expression on his face. The man stood up slowly, observing the surrounding layout. The radio was still chattering. The door was suddenly pushed open, and a lady walked in, wearing a white shirt and an old-fashioned army green dress. The man felt familiar for a while, whether it was the shape of his face, his smile, or his attire. The woman smiled at him and said, "Good morning, or should I say good afternoon?" "Where am I?" the man asked. "New York Rehab." "Where am I?" The man repeated the question, and the woman's eyes flickered. "Sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about." "This game, in May 1941, I was there at the time." He stood up, with a strong sense of oppression, and was about to force the woman to say something, when 2 agents broke in. Boom! The special ward was completely torn apart. 2 agents flew out, with deep horror in their eyes. They were all experienced fighters, but they were instantly killed by one, Nua's Zhao, move. Going outside, looking at the surrounding screens and the dimly lit room, the man chose a direction and ran quickly. "Captain Rogers." "Wait. You listen to our explanation." It can be seen that Rogers has no intention of staying in the slightest, and the woman can only say to the walkie-talkie, "Warning, warning, the captain has found a loophole, everyone pay attention." A large number of agents surrounded Rogers, trying to trap Rogers, but they were all knocked away, and he ran out of the gate all the way to the road. Rogers froze, eyes. The vehicles in front of him, various LCD screens, and neon S made him feel very strange. "Relax, soldier. We are not your enemy." Several cars came around. Nick Fury walked up to Rogers. "I'm sorry about the performance just now, but it's for your own good. I just want you to get ready." "Preparing for what?" Rogers tensed up, his eyes swept over the agents behind the black man, especially their weapons. "The war is over, you have been sleeping for 70 years, Captain," Nick Fury said in a deep voice. Rogers looked around in shock. Skyscrapers were not uncommon in his time, but cars with completely different shapes, all kinds of strange S and mobile phones in the hands of passing people. Zero. Finally, there is this one-eyed man in front of him. Finally, Rogers accepted the reality and murmured, "You are right, in my time, it was impossible for a black man to be an officer." Nick Fury's fist hardened. Seeing Rogers' downcast expression, Nick Fury still asked concerned, "Are you okay?" "It's okay." Rogers shook his head. "I just missed a date." Episode 69. Gwen's birthday. Tony is being beaten. Feel the flow direction of chi in the body, like when you attack and hit your feet. On a small island in the Atlantic Ocean, Sun Wuming is teaching Gwen the art of dancing. With a body that surpasses that of ordinary people, the chi in Gwen's body also grows very quickly, completely reaching the training standard of Wukong. However, Miss Spider doesn't have very good ability in breath control, and after so long, she can only use it simply and roughly. For example, it is attached to the fist when attacking, and acts on the feet when jumping, or release it directly in one breath, forming a qigong wave. Gwen's qigong wave is very bad. In Sun Wuming's hands, the same amount of chi can blow up a house, but in Gwen's hands it can only be compared to bullets. Originally, Sun Wuming didn't want to teach Gwen Wukong so early, but he couldn't stand the girl's soft-hearted attitude and the threat of not making breakfast. He can only drive ducks to the shelves, release the chi slowly from the feet, resist the gravitational force brought by the earth, and maintain balance. According to Sun Wuming, Gwen tried cautiously. Try to control those disobedient chi, gather at your feet, and then, boom, she jumped up to a height of 50 meters, and Sun Wuming took off with a face full of helplessness, catching Gwen who was in a hurry. There are no tall buildings here to lend her strength. If she falls to the ground, it will probably hurt for a while. Seeing Gwen's lingering fear, Sun Wuming was also a little funny. You are a master of physics. Can't you calculate how much power is needed to resist gravity? It's not the same at all, okay? Gwen retorted blushing. One is science, the other is metaphysics. They are completely different feelings. Besides, if I can control it so precisely, you won't say I'm stupid. After finishing speaking, she was a little frustrated again. Am I really stupid? Sun Wuming comforted. Practice makes perfect. As long as you make the use of chi and instinct, you will learn everything quickly in the future. Gwen nodded her head firmly. Then practice for another 2 hours tomorrow. Tomorrow is not enough. Sun Wuming shook his head. Tomorrow is your 18th birthday, so you should take a day off anyway. Gwen patted her head angrily. I'd forget if you didn't tell me. Sun Wuming showed a bad 477 smile. I will never forget even if you forget. I have been waiting for this day for 6 years. Gwen buried her face in his chest shyly. Early the next morning, Sun Wuming dressed up and came to Gwen's house. At noon, they would have dinner with the Georges, and the afternoon and evening were their own. Wuming is here. Come in quickly. When they came to Gwen's house, Helen opened the door for Sun Wuming and warmly greeted him to come in. In the living room, there are already several girls, MJ, Betty, and several girls in the class. These people are all good friends of Gwen in school. Gwen celebrated her birthday, so naturally she was invited too fast. Happy birthday, baby. Sun Wuming hugged Gwen, ignored Helen, and kissed her directly, and Gwen also wrapped her arms around his neck in cooperation. 18 years old is a watershed in life. From then on, Gwen's life will start a new stage. It started with being upright and Wuming together. Several girls also showed aunt smiles. In their eyes, Gwen and Sun Wuming are the most perfect couple template. No one wants to have a boyfriend like this. After a long time, the two lips parted. Helen secretly sighed that the child was getting older, and without saying anything, went into the kitchen and got busy, leaving the space for the young people. Sun Wuming opened the small gift he brought. A very beautiful sapphire crown, shining in the sun. Each metal frame is inlaid with a natural blue crystal. After MJ and others saw it, their envious eyes turned red. So beautiful. Gwen covered her mouth in surprise, and Wuming put it on for her with her own hands. The girl with the crown on her head looked like a real princess. This is also Santino's treasure, and it is one of the most precious items in the Kimura family's property. It is said to be a collection of the Swedish royal family. It was actually exiled to the United States during World War II and was acquired by the Kimura family. It has been collected until now. Thank you, dear. Gwen kissed Sun Wuming again, and the two sat close together. MJ said sourly, why don't we go? I always feel that being here is redundant. Betty nodded approvingly, but she wasn't fed up with dog food. This guy was AL********************. She just thought Gwen's crown was so pretty, and the more she looked at it, the more she liked it. To MJ's ridicule, Sun Wuming countered, if you are envious, you can go to Peter. I think he will be happy to provide you with a warm embrace. Now, it was MJ's turn to be embarrassed, and everyone laughed. Since the last semester, MJ and Peter have been getting closer and closer, and they have dated 3 times now, and it seems that it should be done. The tradition of the United States is dating. If you date 3 times at a time, it means that the relationship between the two is about to go further. MJ is naturally also interested in Peter, but recently Peter got an internship opportunity from Stark Industries. The two met less. We chatted until 11 o'clock, and MJ and the others left. After a while, Mr. George came back. He specially asked for leave to have dinner for Gwen's birthday. Happy birthday, my princess. George took out his birthday present. A car key. Your favorite beetle. I think you'll need it when you go to college, George said, and Gwen happily took it. Thank you, Dad. George looked at Sun Wuming and opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. Ever since he found out that Sun Wuming was a Saiyan, his impression of the boy was completely shattered. Who would have thought that the guy who snatched his little padded jacket was the terrifying guy who pushed the building and killed 4 villains with one move? Sun Wuming hasn't shot him all these years. What a good boy. During the meal, Mr. Inji was very happy. Today, the police station suddenly received a donation from the Stark Group, not only with a large amount of cash, but also with a large number of advanced weapons and investigative equipment. With these equipment, the safety of the police is more guaranteed. Halfway through the meal, George talked about some of his experience and skills as a police officer, and what kind of prisoner was the most dangerous. Helen was puzzled when she heard it. Her daughter is celebrating her birthday. Why are you always talking about work? The other 3 knew very well that this was a little wish from their father, and Spider-Woman needed such experience to deal with the subsequent crisis. Therefore, Gwen also listened very seriously. After coming out of the house, Gwen looked at the boy expectantly, with a hint of shyness. "Where do we go now? Or straight home?" Just now, neither George nor Helen told her to come back earlier, and it was obvious that they had tacitly agreed to something. Gwen at the moment is looking forward to it, but also a little scared. "Eat you again tonight, the date has to go through the process," Sun Wuming said softly, biting Gwen's ear. Gwen agreed in a daze. The two took a taxi to the vicinity of Broadway. A month's time is enough for this place to recover. The impact of the street chaos has almost disappeared, and only scattered places are still under construction. Huh? Is there a new museum here? Why is there no name? Sun Wuming brought Gwen to the huge amounts of door, and knew it was a museum through the sign at the door. But, whose museum doesn't have a sign? It's newly opened today, let's go in and have a look. Sun Wuming smiled, took Gwen's hand and walked into Sefk. After the two entered, two men in black with sunglasses appeared, guarding the door firmly and not letting anyone in. Meanwhile, Brooklyn. Boom. A series of explosions sounded, and the flames soared into the sky, and the people of New York once again lived in dire straits. Two monsters of huge amounts of size wrestled in the street, causing huge amounts of damage, cars smashed like paper. One of the monsters had green skin and was wearing a pair of shorts. He was being pushed to the ground with a hammer, and his head smashed a big hole in the ground. The monster that pressed him was even more disgusting. He was much more ferocious than the former, and his aura was even more violent. His feces yellow skin was disgusting, wrinkled, and even had barbs. As soon as I saw him, I immediately felt that the monster he was holding down to sleep was much more pleasing to the eye. These two guys are undoubtedly the Hulk and the hated Bronski. The sad Dr. Banner lived in seclusion in South America and found a job in a beverage factory. But it is a pity that cultural people cannot do hard work. He made a careless operation and accidentally dropped a drop of his own blood into the drink, causing an old man to have an adverse reaction. As a result, he was discovered by General Ross, who had always been obsessed with him. He followed the law enforcement across the country and chased him to South America. The two chased and fled, and returned to New York all the way. And Bronski was also injected with the serum and Hulk's blood turned into an abomination. The two monsters met in Brooklyn, and Tion started the demolition work. "Hulk, you're a mindless piece of trash, it's such a waste to give you this kind of power." While hammering Hulk, the abomination also carried out a mental attack. Hulk kept roaring, but for a while, he couldn't break free from the loathing's control. He can increase his strength with anger without an upper limit, but it also takes a certain amount of time. Under normal conditions, an abomination with reason is much stronger than Hulk. "General, which one should we fight?" Inside the helicopter, a field officer looked at Ross. Betty said urgently, "Dad, don't hurt Bruce." Ross frowned and ordered, "All firepower is aimed at Bronski. What I want is a super soldier, not a monster." In addition, there is another reason that makes Ross very angry, that is, Bronski disobeyed his order and used Hulk's blood without authorization. Yes, the soldiers got the order and passed it on immediately. Soon, the soldiers on the battlefield started to attack, machine guns shot at the abomination, and there were even tanks approaching. "Hey, you bastards." Annoyed by the beating, Hate raised the car in his hand and threw it towards the soldiers. Hearing the screams coming from his ears, the Hatred showed a ferocious smile, and looked at the helicopter hovering in midair. He knew it must be the order from General Ross. Immediately abandoned Hulk, stepped on the building and climbed up. He wanted to kill this group of people. "Quick, raise the altitude," Ross said quickly. Without his reminding, the driver was already doing it. The Hate's speed is very fast, much faster than the speed of the plane's climb. In a blink of an eye, it climbed to the top of the building, jumped hard under its feet, and rushed towards the helicopter. "No!" Hulk roared, both Bruce Banner and Hulk, to Betty. With a good impression, he chased hard and wanted to save the helicopter. Just at this moment, a missile flew towards the face of Hate and exploded. Boom! The dust dissipated, the abomination fell down, the helicopter staggered away, and finally survived. Accompanied by a burst of dynamic music, Iron Man debuted. He raised his arm and aimed at the abomination. "Hey, big slug, this is not a place for you to run wild. Tony is so competent right now. Arc reactor, full. Armor, new. Weapons, all. Just tell me how to lose." General Ross heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Iron Man coming. Even though he didn't like Tony hiding in the iron sheet, he had to recognize the strength of the other side, which was a rare reinforcement. "Stark, you bug is here to mess with me too, damn it. Damn it." Hating rage, everything around him became a weapon, thrown at Tony. Not even soldiers survived. The battle armor flew flexibly, dodging a pile of garbage, and found a gap to fire missiles at the abomination. Hulk, who was about to rush up, was also affected by it, and he yelled at Tony in dissatisfaction. Sorry, but strictly speaking, you are also within my attack range, so it is not an accidental injury." Why? Tony was still skinning, but when his eyes blurred, the hatred had already jumped to his eyes. Boom! The 4 Malawian Quatch's battle armor was slammed into the air, piercing through several buildings before stopping. Tony inside felt like his whole body was about to fall apart and groaned in pain. Sir, the battle armor has lost 3% of the king. Okay. Okay. I know, you guys want to play, come on. Tony was completely furious and rushed over at full speed, pouring out firepower without any money. There were continuous explosions on the street, and houses were shaken and collapsed in large areas. This be ************ D. Don't attack Hulk. He's mine. My prey. Ross, who was hiding in the helicopter, roared crazily, and Betty looked anxious. It was because Tony's attack seemed too fierce. The flames were soaring into the sky, and the smoke filled the sky, making it impossible for them to see the situation on the battlefield clearly. Until Hulk used all his strength, he jumped directly to the same height as Iron Man, clenched his fists, and blasted Tony into the air again. Falling into the ruins, the steel battlesuit visor bounced off, revealing Tony's expressionless face. Fuck. Why are all his enemies such monsters? Episode 70. Destroyed perfect atmosphere, violent killing, and abomination. SHIELD, on countless split screens, broadcast the Brooklyn battle live. Director, the captain has brought the team over, but, does this really work? Phil Coulson asked with some concern. No matter how much he adores the captain of the United States, he must admit that the captain's strength is of no use at all in this monster confrontation. Nick Fury put his arms around his chest, stared at the screen quietly, and said calmly, Captain doesn't need to defeat these two monsters, as long as they cause a little disturbance to allow Hulk to escape smoothly. The military's super soldier program has been going on in secret, and General Ross is the current person in charge, who created monsters like the Hulk. Looking at Hulk on the screen, Fury felt a pang of desire. He wants to get this power. Only this kind of terrifying power made him see the hope of checking and balancing Sun Wuming. However, this Hulk is, after all, the product of General Ross and the military's experiments, and he would definitely turn his face if he directly sent someone to rob him. The reason why Captain America was sent there was also because the opponent had a very special military background and would not arouse too much opposition. As long as the Hulk doesn't fall into Rose's hands, then he has a chance to slowly infiltrate and eventually master him. Seeing what Nick Fury said, Phil Coulson can only continue to watch the situation develop. Manhattan, Museum. Gwen only felt huge amounts of surprise. Originally thought that such a new small museum would not have any good art, but it is not the case. My God. This is the Wanderer above the Sea of Fog. Why is this painting here? It should be in the Hamburg Art Museum. And this one? The Sistine Madonna. Are these paintings really authentic? Sun Wuming looked at the happy girl with a smile. The museum is very big, but apart from a few employees, there are only 2 tourists. It should be true. You see, there is evidence here. Sun Wuming doesn't understand art, but he understands certificates. This art gallery is amazing. So many precious works can be collected. Who opened it? Gwen was so excited that her little face was blushing. Suddenly, Sun Wuming frowned, and soon let go, continuing to follow behind Gwen as if nothing had happened. The two came to a painting. Gwen's eyes were fascinated. Girl with a pearl earring. This is my favorite painting. This color tone, brush strokes. Sun Wuming still smiled. This painting is not in the collection of the Kimura family, but he got it here specially. At first, the curator of the Windmill Country was still unwilling to sell it, but he finally agreed to it after going over in person and taking the other party to the sky for a friendly exchange. It's really nice here. We will come here often in the future. Gwen took his arm and said coquettishly. Sun Wuming agreed immediately. No problem, you can come whenever you want, even if it's 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. The girl just smiled. Which museum is still open at 12 o'clock? Even if I want to come, the boss won't let me. Isn't that just a matter of your words? Sun Wuming smiled mysteriously and patted Meng under Gwen's confused gaze. A staff member came with a tray with a contract on it. Sign it, and you can come whenever you want in the future. This. Gwen took it over. Her eyes widened, as if she had thought of something. She quickly opened the contract. Is this museum yours? No, I prepared this for you. Sun Wuming corrected. You are the boss here. Gwen covered her mouth excitedly. Her eyes were moist. Hurry up and sign. Before they get off work, they can go through the formalities. Gwen nodded heavily, but wrote Sun Wuming's name on the contract. What's yours is mine. It doesn't matter who owns this museum, so be it. Gwen hugged Sun Wuming with a smile. All the people around who were very discerning disappeared, and when the two were about to make love, Gwen's spider telepathy suddenly activated, opened his blurred eyes, and instantly woke up. Problem occurs. Sun Wuming's face darkened, not targeting Gwen. He was targeting the 2 big guys outside who were causing trouble. Fight, why come here? Soon, his phone rang. Sun Wuming connected, and immediately heard Tony's screams. Help! Help! I'm dying. Sorry, you made the wrong number. I don't know you. Sun Wuming was about to hang up after saying that. Fuck. Sun Wuming, you don't come here again. Don't even want your gravity room. I don't believe you made it. Goodbye. Sun Wuming hung up the phone, and Gwen took advantage of this time to read the news online and found out what happened. Biting his lips, he met the boy's eyes. I just found out, but today is your birthday, and I don't want to care about such crap. Sun Wuming explained. Gwen shook her head. I don't want you to go either, but if you keep fighting, you will be at our house. On a few live screens, Hulk fights with Hulk all the way, demolishes all the way, and will soon go to Queens. Gwen blinked playfully. Mr. Sun, you don't want us to be homeless tonight, do you? Alright, you win. Sun Wuming raised his hands in surrender, hating both Hulk and the Abomination in his heart. Brooklyn, oh no, it's Queens here. Hulk's battle with the Abomination is unstoppable, and Iron Man's most powerful weapon can't even break the defense of two people. Among the weapons brought by Ross, only the infrasonic weapon can cause damage to the two monsters. JARVIS, create a new folder. I'm going to make anti-Hulk armor when I get back. Tony was a little annoyed. Also, find out where Sun Wuming is. He is no longer the S***T he was when he first appeared on the stage, and he can only cooperate with Hulk to contain the Abomination, which can only play a role in harassment, annoying the Abomination like a fly. Not because he has a soft spot for the Hulk, but because the threat of Abomination is greater. The opponent will spray a highly corrosive venom, and his armor will be melted together. Now Tony learned how to fly higher and farther away from the building so that the Abomination couldn't get close to him quickly. Sir, Mr. Sun Wuming is still in a museum in Manhattan. Fact. New York is gone, and you still want to pick up girls. I don't want to pick up girls. Why are you here to collect your body? Sun Wuming's unhurried voice rang in his ears. Tony turned his head quickly, overjoyed. You're finally here. But forget it, stop them quickly, half of Brooklyn has been destroyed. I'm not here to stop them. Sun Wuming's eyes flickered coldly. I'm here to vent my anger. After speaking, he swooped down directly. Boom. The body of the Abomination who was wrestling with Hulk shook, feeling the huge amounts of threat. Looking up, I saw a small black dot approaching him rapidly. Hate raised his hands, stomped on the ground, and took the initiative to meet him. Rumble. Hate just jumped halfway and flew back at a faster speed. A shockwave swayed the ripples, and the dilapidated buildings nearby were devastated again. The ground rolled, huge amounts of stones were thrown into the air, and Hate coughed loudly. Blood. The whole person is inlaid into the earth, the kind that can't be picked off. He screamed in pain, his ribs twisted strangely, piercing his skin, and he looked extremely miserable. Hiss. Tony gasped, seeing his chest twitching all of a sudden. Is the fist so hard? JARVIS, calculate the impact force just now. Sir, 1,000,000 tons, the entire street would have been destroyed if the Abomination hadn't taken a massive hit. It's no different from being ruined. Tony looked at the devastated street, as if it had been plowed. It was horrible. Tony couldn't help shivering. He interrupted Sun Wuming's date, and today is his spider-girlfriend's birthday. You won't be targeting him for a while, will you? Seeing the Abomination who was beating him crazily just now, he couldn't take care of himself after being beaten in an instant. Hulk's little head hadn't reacted for a while, but Sun Wuming has not given him this chance. He's not here to be a superhero, he's here to vent his anger. The perfect date with Gwen was ruined by these two cuties. Sun Wuming almost turned into a super subhuman in anger. The Abomination wants to fight, and the Hulk also wants to fight. Whatever Avenger you are. Boom. A punch hit Hulk, who was still a little dazed, in the face, sending him flying, and Sun Wuming slowly floated up. Get up. You two trash. I'm going to beat you to death today, reptile. You are courting death. I am the strongest. Hulk. Roars sounded one after another, and the Abomination broke free from the ground. After Hulk received a punch, his anger level rose gradually, and his muscles swelled a circle. Go Ming. Don't kill Hulk. His situation is special, Tony quickly shouted in the air. He also learned about the situation during the battle just now. This green giant is Bruce Banner. Besides being not a bad guy, he is also involved with the military. If Sun Wuming beat him to death, then General Ross would definitely not let him go. It's none of your business here, you can go. Sun Wuming said lightly that the relationship between him and Tony is good, but it doesn't mean that the other party can influence his will. The two giants smashed towards him at the same time. Sun Wuming turned sideways, avoiding the punch of the Abomination, and punched him directly in the abdomen. Ask for flowers. Possessing a strong recovery ability of hatred, the wound just now has scabbed over. But now he dare not underestimate Sun Wuming's attack. In this small body, the power of explosion is hidden. So, with a turn of the eyeballs of hatred, Hulk was pulled over and stood in front of him as a meat shield. The next moment, Hulk's angry expression changed. His facial features were distorted, and he spat out green blood in a gulp. It hurts. It hurts. His internal organs seemed to have been crushed by this punch. Sun Wuming didn't care who he hit. Hulk knelt on the ground, but he grabbed his head, forcing him to look up his painful face. I'm so angry right now. In response, Hulk roared again. Accompanied by pain is anger, and after such a long period of superimposition, Hulk's anger has broken through the sky, and his strength has surpassed hatred. No. Bruce. On the plane, Betty screamed, watching the scene where Hulk was beaten. She quickly said to Ross, Dad. Stop him. Bruce will be killed, wait a little longer. General Ross's voice was calm. Things were going too badly. If the two monsters continued to quarrel, his position as a general would be lost. Wait, when this person defeats Hulk and the Abomination, it's not too late for him to stop them, so that he can catch them and make up for the mistakes. Rose's eyes flickered, and he looked at Sun Wuming with greed. Terrifying power, human appearance, and strong combat experience. 0. This is his dream super soldier template. At the moment, Abomination and Hulk were beaten violently by Sun Wuming in turn. Everyone's body was covered with blood, even Sun Wuming's fist was covered with blood from both of them. The tyrannical defense completely lost its effect under his iron fist, and the huge amounts of body became a burden. No matter how hard Hulk and the Abomination tried to dodge, Sun Wuming's attack was like maggots of Tarsus. Blocking Hulk's fist, Sun Wuming grabbed his ankle and slammed back and forth, hitting the ground hard. Bang! 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 The ground was trembling, Sun Wuming's feet were smashed into potholes, and they were constantly getting bigger and deeper. Loathing rushed forward, took the opportunity to sneak attack Sun Wuming, who smashed Xinghuan, and opened his bloody mouth with a ferocious face. He's going to bite off this man's neck. Eat his head. Boom! Hulk was used as a weapon by Sun Wuming and flung at the Abomination. The two monsters crazily stuck together. Damn it! Get the hell out of here! Hulk you big B ***ch. Venus flashed in his eyes, hating being smashed, and his teeth fell all over the ground. As for Hulk, it has lost the ability to speak, and its eyes are dull, allowing Sun Wuming to play with him at will. Although, as long as Hulk is angry all the time, his strength will become infinitely stronger, with almost no upper limit. But anger is also conditional. When the strength of the two is not much different, Hulk can continue to be angry. For example, when fighting against the anti-Hulk armor, he kept getting stronger, and finally demolished Veronica. But now, Sun Wuming and his forces are not in the same dimension at all, making people see no hope. Under absolute crushing, no matter how strong Hulk became, he was still beaten violently. Gradually the anger dissipated and was replaced by fear. Sun Wuming found that the weight on his hands was getting lighter rapidly, and Hulk's complexion was also getting lighter. Is this changing back to Banner? Wrinkled his head, he threw it directly into the ruins on one side. It's really useless, it's not easy to use as a weapon. Forget it, anyway, the anger is almost gone, and it's time to kill someone. A cold light flickered in Sun Wuming's eyes. The Abomination of at the moment was very weak, its limbs twisted at a strange angle, and it was even a little unable to move. No matter how strong the recovery ability is, it's useless if it can't be recovered as fast as the injury. If he was given a few minutes, he might still be able to stand up, but obviously, Sun Wuming would not give him this chance. The index finger stretched out, and the bright golden light condensed on the fingertips. In the light of that terrifying energy concentration, Hate felt the crisis of death for the first time. No. You can't kill me. I haven't killed the Hulk yet. I haven't become the strongest yet. The hatred roared again and again, but Sun Wuming remained unmoved, and slowly pointed his fingertips at his chest. Seeing that Sun Wuming had not only won, but also wanted to kill directly, General Ross couldn't sit still. The plane landed quickly, and his big horn shouted down, "Stop. This is a military item, you have no right to dispose of it. I order you to stop." Annoying flies, Sun Wuming snorted coldly, and the Qigong wave was released immediately. For a moment, the eyes of everyone present were all blocked by the dazzling light.